Well, Razorback fans, I can tell you that a lot of you are concerned about Razorback football, not only about next season, but about the future of it. And I am too. And I'm going to tell you why here on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, as it is extremely cold and has been. So hopefully wherever you're at, you're staying out of the cold weather and snow, ice, whatever. Apparently there's going to be some this weekend and here in the Northwest Arkansas area. So I'm going to try to be as safe as I possibly can, even though I hate the way people act and react about winter weather. That's a whole nother topic for a discussion. And you don't care about that. What you do care about is, of course, your Razorbacks, because that's what we do here on this podcast. The Locked On Razorbacks, we talk the Razorbacks. And I'm going to talk to you about some things today that actually are very opinionated, which I know I'm always opinionated, but as far as going into specific topics, dealing with Dave Van Horn and John Calipari and the pressure that's on them this spring, and also getting into a little bit of the SEC talk in basketball. But today I wanted to talk about the Razorback football team. Folks, it's interesting. We've talked about the whole transfer portal. We've talked about who they've added, who they've lost. We've talked about the future, about what can be good, what cannot be, what's not so good. And we have really dove in and out of this whole entire situation that Razorback football finds themselves in. But I think just given the circumstances of how everybody feels, or at least the vibe that I get, is that all of you are concerned. Some more so than others. But I think everybody has a certain level of concern for the Razorback program and the future of said Razorback program. Now, why is that? I mean, is it something as simple as dealing with the roster management? Is it something like just the coaches in general? I think everybody has their own take on it. But as time has gone on, in dealing with this transfer portal specifically, I've kind of grown a little extra concerned. Not because I think that every player that they brought in is going to be bad. It's more of the overall feel for each position group. You're banking and having to bank on a hope of improvement. Not did improve, not for sure improved, the hope of improvement. And that's a scary thing to try to rest your laurels on when it comes to any sport, much less football. This thing on paper and the transfer portal and the players that they brought in, there's a few of them that are really good. I even talked about how I've been pretty pleased with the defensive backs and the secondary they brought in. I think the offensive line has been pretty solid. There's even been some other players, like a tight end that's been brought in that I really like. But still, a lot of that is just based in hope. Based that it's going to be okay because I'm putting my trust in this group of coaches who have lost a lot of players for the second year in a row, lost the most players in the SEC, and are replacing them with players that are just as good, if not better. That's what I'm hoping for. But it's really hard to stay hopeful when I'm looking at so many Razorbacks, former Razorbacks, I should say, going to other SEC schools. And I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about in general. Jalen Catalon just the other day, yes, he still can play, announced he's transferring to Missouri. Going back to another SEC school. It's his third SEC school. He started at Arkansas, then he went over to Texas, then he went to UNLV, but now he's back in Missouri. 7 years he's been in college. I wasn't expecting him to return to Arkansas. I wasn't. But when you start seeing Catalon over there at Missouri, Kudus and Luke Hasz and Jalen Braxton at Ole Miss, Josh Braun at Kentucky, Brad Spence at Texas, Isaiah Satania at Oklahoma. You start seeing all of these players going to other SEC schools and not you. You can't help but think, okay, am I really going to think in my mind that these guys, I didn't want them here at Arkansas? That they didn't fit here at Arkansas? That I wouldn't be all in on them being at Arkansas? Am I really going to try to convince myself of that? Again, you got some good players out of the portal, but let's be honest. You didn't get a bunch of starters from other SEC schools. Like, think about it from the Ole Miss perspective. They look at it with the 3 players that they got. They look at it as, we just gained the best tight end on the Razorback football team, the best defensive back on the Razorback football team, and the best offensive lineman on the football team. These weren't backups. I know they dealt with injury and people bring that up, but still, these weren't backups. These weren't players that just were highly regarded and was seeing the bench for 2 straight seasons or anything like that. No, these were guys that started and they left you to go start somewhere else. Ole Miss sees it as they got starters from an SEC school. Kentucky, same way. Texas, same way. They got starters from you. And yet I'm supposed to believe, I'm supposed to think, I'm supposed to hope that losing all of those players that were bona fide starters here going to other SEC schools, that the players that you're bringing in who were almost all of them, if not all of them, were not starters at SEC schools or really any big-time schools in general, I'm just supposed to believe that those players are going to be better than these other players that went to teams that are in better positions and have better programs. I can't. I've tried. I can't. Now, that is not to say that it's all doom and gloom and that this team is going to be terrible. They may not be good. But I'm just expressing that's my concern when you really break it down into a very black and white, clear as crystal type of situation. The players you lost the starters you lost went to other SEC schools where apparently either if you try to say, we didn't want them anyways, or, they cost too much money, or, they didn't fit, whatever reasoning you want to give, and when I say you, not only the fans, but also the coaching staff, whatever reasons you want to give, am I supposed to say, that's okay. It's okay to lose those players. Yeah, we didn't want them anyways. We can go and get somebody else. A diamond in the rough. However you want to put it, however you want to see it. Just go in and do that. It'll be fine. I can't. That's what concerns me. You can say what you want about Braxton or Kudus or any of these other players about the way they left or about how they handled themselves or about them not playing or whatever. You can do that. How I'm going to look at it is in a reality. Ole Miss was this close to going to a college football playoff, and Lane Kiffin's got them rolling right now. And they just went in and poached 3 of your starters. If they're good enough to play at Ole Miss, if they're good enough to get paid whatever that is that they needed to be paid at Ole Miss, I'm sorry, they are good enough to be here at Arkansas. Same thing with Satania. Same thing with Spence. I'd even say same thing with Braun. I mean, even Addison Nichols went to SMU. That team was in the playoff. But yet, they weren't good enough to play for you? Or you didn't think, that's going to be a major loss? I can't buy that. I'm as optimistic of a person out there. You all know this. You all know that I bleed Razorback red and I want this team to succeed at the highest level and in every regard. But I cannot just talk myself into seeing all these players that played at your school either last year or in previous years go to other SEC schools, and you should just be fine doing whatever. It's okay. We'll replace them. I mean, most of the guys you've gotten out of the transfer portal either came from smaller schools where they started, like non-Power 5, which I know is not the know-all, end-all, be-all, but still, either came from those levels or backup players at other schools that didn't even play, like the Jaquan McCrory kid. A lot of people are excited about it. I get it. He's on the number 1 team in the country, Oregon. Didn't even play. Didn't play a snap. No, same thing with a guy like, of course, his name just gave me, I had it written down, but the tight end over there from Texas A&M played a little bit, but they don't seem too worried. I'm hopeful in the regards of putting my faith in the group that lead this football program that they are doing it the right way. And that there is method to their madness. And that this risk, this high risk that they are taking is going to pay off in the end. I'm hopeful for that. But folks, it's just hard for me to come to you now and believe that it's all going to be A-okay and not to feel not only disrespected as a program, but to feel almost like a joke in a way. You are falling down on the list of things. Is it a Sam Pittman problem? Is it a 100-yard check problem? Is it the way that the NIL's handling, or the U of A's handling NIL problem? I mean, it could be a encompassing of all of them. Absolutely. But I just cannot get down with this. I cannot continue to try to blindly hope when something is 6 inches in front of my face, blindly hope that all's well that ends well, and the transition of players out with the transition of players coming in is hunky-dory just fine. I can't do it. You still got some work to do in the portal. You still got to add some pieces. You still got to develop some guys, get some guys ready in the spring. But I'm just not going to be somebody that this offseason is going to hype myself up to thinking that this team's going to be anything better than 6-6. I refuse to do it. I won't do it. I hope I'm wrong, but I just can't do it. We'll talk about some pressure that fans may have on Calipari as well as Dave Van Horn. Is it justified? We'll get to that and more, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, attending the new 12-team college football playoff game is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams that are involved. And Gametime app is the reason why. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out all the fluff so you show incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Gametime Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game at a Razorback basketball game for a friend of mine. And when I was browsing through the deals, it was easy. Found great value for all kinds of seats at the Bud Walton Arena, as well as the Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying, and the app shows that total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkouts. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery, lowest price guaranteed, made me get a complete peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKOD. Let me rephrase that. Redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, which appreciate you all bearing with me because I still got this congestion stuff. I'm sure you've recognized that and noticed it and getting frustrated by it, but it's the way it is. But either way, I wanted to bring this up because I was discussing this with a few of you listeners and dealing with the way that fans have gone through over the past 18 months, essentially. It's not been great. We know it's not. I don't have to sit here and regurgitate all the crap that you've had to deal with. I mean, here I am about to. But, you've had back-to-back football seasons of 4-8 and 6-6, 7-6, I guess, with the winning record. You've had that. You've had a basketball season, then a second season, I guess, or season and a half, that it hasn't been great. This year we still got time, still can get it going, but there's just a lot of concerns there, and last year wasn't good. You missed the tournament. And then in baseball, you're coming off of 2 straight seasons of having a national seed and then losing into the regional at home. So to say you fans have been through it would be an understatement. I mean, it's coming up on 2 years where you've yet to feel any sort of excitement about any of the major sports, especially in postseason. So somebody was telling me about how with Calipari and Dave Van Horn, and they put it very bluntly and very simply, if Calipari does not make the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and or Dave Van Horn get out of the regional again, then they're just going to turn in their fandom card. And you hear like a lot of stuff like that about fans kind of being over the top, using hyperbole. It's part of it. It's common. But man, I started really thinking about it and putting that into perspective. I feel like I'm being very negative in this podcast. I'm not trying to be, but it's interesting to me to think about the possibility of that happening again. Like where Cal and Arkansas in year one, say if they don't even make the tournament, but say they make the tournament and then they get bounced first game. What that would do and how much people would have to hear about it from the Kentucky fans, from everybody. And it's almost like they would feel justified in all of their criticisms towards Cal. And then you throw into the mix of Dave Van Horn for a 3rd straight year not being able to get out of the regional. 3rd straight year of a Razorback baseball program, which is top of the top, and no doubt is considered to be one of the best in programs in the country. To have that happen again, you didn't have to wait for football season, which doesn't look like it's going to be much better. But you would be then getting close and flirting with 3 straight years of no success, no high-level national success in your 3 major sports. 3 years. I don't want to manifest that. I don't want to put it into existence, but I can understand why all of you, would have a tough time being able to hold your fandom card and believing that this program is going in the right direction. And honestly, whether it's right or wrong, it's just how I feel, it would mean that there needs to be a change at the top rapidly if that happened. You're not going to fire Cal. You're not going to fire Dave Van Horn, and I wouldn't want you to. But you know who I'm talking about. There would need to be a change, a major change in that. And it would just be sad because you think about how many kids, growing up, I know a lot of you did the same as I did, grew up a Razorback fan, and we had moments as kids that we got to watch and enjoy. Some of you watching the 94 National Championship. I remember watching Matt Jones and Darren McFadden, and football, and then getting a little bit of the basketball success. And then baseball, of course, being good for the most part. I remember becoming a big fan in 2004, Brady Toops' Grand Slam home run. I remember being at that game. Like, we'd all have those moments. But 3 straight years, I don't think any of us ever went through something like that where all 3 major sports were bad. I mean, sure, there were years that it was tougher than others, but it didn't last in every sport, regardless of the transition. So you got to hang in there. You got to be hopeful. But it also shows just how important it is that this spring be a good spring. Yes, I want Dave Van Horn and John Calipari both to go far in the postseason play. But at least one of them better. That's all I'm saying. One of them better. They better do it. I'll let you all decide and debate who's going to be more likely to do it, but you better find a way. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to talk about the SEC in basketball and why I actually hate it here in just a second. So stay with me here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better when you have FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to get your live bets, your same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit the website and share betting lines around all over the place to all your friends and tell them about why you go over to FanDuel and check out all the betting lines there. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season forgettable unforgettable, depending on which team you're going with. But make it unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The SEC basketball situation is great. I mean, it is. It's stupid. I think yesterday came out with the AP poll. 6 of the top 10 teams in college basketball are from the SEC. 6. Men's college basketball, not baseball, not football, not softball, not gymnastics, not track, not any of these other sports. Men's basketball. And it's great, right? It's great to have so many teams that are so good and people are watching you, and the high level of competition and the high level of players and the high level of coaches that are in this conference, once again showing and proving that the SEC is the creme de la creme when it comes to all college athletics. I don't feel that way. And it's weird that I don't feel that way. Here's why. In football, I've always enjoyed being a part of the SEC. Sure, the SEC has screwed us over as Arkansas fans many times. They don't exactly give us the helping hand, but I also feel like it's a lesser of two evils because you see of the other conferences and how they've handled their situations, like why Arkansas got out of the Southwest Conference. You see what the ACC does, all those things. I think the SEC is at least fair when it comes to their money. At the end of the day, that's the one that's like you can't say conspiracies or anything. Money is money, and if you share it to everybody across the board, that's at least better than what the alternatives are. But in football, I've always said, if an SEC team went up against an Ohio State or a Michigan, or back before Texas joined, or Texas A&M joined, but if they went up against them, if they went up against a Florida State, a USC, whoever it was, I usually rooted for the SEC team. Usually. And in baseball, I haven't done that here recently as much because I'm starting to hate more and more. But, when you had Florida, I would root for them because I liked the way that they ran their program. I didn't mind South Carolina. I didn't even mind LSU all that much. They got annoying, but I liked the way that they handled themselves in coaching. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. I have no love for them and how they've handled themselves. But the point is like there were still teams I rooted for. Basketball, I'm out of that. There's not a single team in SEC play at all where I'm like, once the NCAA tournament goes around, then I'm going to be like, I'm rooting for them. There's not one. I think it's because of the coaches. I think it's because of the high level of competition. But if Alabama plays somebody, I'm rooting for the other team. If Auburn plays somebody, I'm rooting for the other team. Kentucky, Florida, A&M. Give me the other team. Texas, give me the other team. Oklahoma, give me the other team. Vanderbilt, Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee might be the best of them because I actually don't mind Rick Barnes as much. But Mississippi State, Ole Miss, it's crazy. It's weird. But again, I know people are excited about the SEC being good. I'm talking about SEC people. And it is good. But I want none of these jokers to go to a Final Four. In fact, I was pissed last year when Alabama went to a Final Four. I was pissed before when Auburn went to a Final Four. South Carolina I didn't really care about because that was weird. But I don't want to see any of them be successful. So it's just funny how, again, I'm saying this from my perspective, not from yours, but I am very anti-SEC when it comes to basketball. I'm not like that in every other sport. But men's basketball, I've definitely developed into that. I hope they all lose. I hope none of them make it far to the tournament. And I hope that their season ends terribly and they have a horrible Christmas next year. That's how I feel. But it's going to be a gauntlet. Should wait for some great games. We'll see where Arkansas stacks up. Again, here's hoping. Here's hoping it actually goes pretty well. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.